Okay, my loves, here we go. Finally, tech devil. I succeeded to overcome the tech devil. Good evening. My name is Dorothee Trassel, and I'm here with beautiful Michaela, my Facebook, social media, Instagram, everything fairy. And I'm very happy that she's supporting me today on my endeavor with the Soulful Talks. Michaela, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everybody. I hope you can see us, hear us. And yes, as you said, I'm your social media fairy and the support in different events happening this year and next few weeks and months. So we've created this live talk series, and we would like to start today with the big topic, trauma and stress. And Dorothy, I would like to ask you, why did you choose this topic as a first one?
Oh, well, because it seems to be what the majority of my work is centered around. Stress, trauma, helping the body to overcome both. And there is a similarity in the nervous system reactions when we are stressed and when we are traumatized. It's not the same, but the bodily functions, the nervous system functions are very similar. So in my private practice with my clients, I have to use the nervous system regulation tools a lot to help people who have been formerly traumatized to overcome the stuckness in trauma and overcome the nervous system dysregulation. But at the same time, when I'm working with clients who are coming out of burnout or who have emotional problems, very often we have the same physiological nervous system background. There is a nervous system that is so stressed, so activated, so worked up that it is difficult for the people to find their balance again. And if I would generalize it, there is more awareness now about trauma in the public. I'm very happy that it finds its place into common knowledge. And I guess many people already know that stress in the workplace, in the family, emotional stress is detrimental to our health. So it's really damaging to ourselves, to our health. But there's a link between trauma and stress and the effects it has on us. And for my own, I had to really work hard to get myself out of my trauma responses. And I'm continuously working on the stress levels. So when I have busy days, when I have busy weeks, I have to be very conscious myself to regulate so that, yes, we can stress a little bit, but then we also have to rest and recover. And this is a lot what the work is about, to understand what's happening in the body, in the mind, with our emotions, and then to choose wisely. Do we want to go on like this, or do we want to regulate? Do we want to give ourselves a break emotionally, physically, or in the nervous system? Yeah, that's why I chose this topic, because it's kind of like the base of what I'm doing is understanding what's happening in the body and soul, and then finding ways of listening to what your body is telling you, and then choosing what are you going to do with this information? How are you in this present moment now encountering life from here, connected here?
Mm-hmm. And that's leading me actually to my first question that I wanted to ask. That, as you said, trauma is becoming more known in the public now. But I feel like we are used to feeding only our minds. We are always seeking for knowing more, to be better, to know the truth. But I believe that when we are seeking the truth, not only the theory is enough. So I wanted to ask you about this integration and importance of integrating all this knowledge and information into our body. Like, why is it so important and crucial to shift from mind to the body? Because we can grasp it logically, but when the stress arises or when we feel suddenly some emotion, the mind fails. And then we're like, but what should I do now? I read all the books, I was listening to all the podcasts, but then I feel that, you know what I mean? If you have any thoughts on this, like how important it is to integrate it and how we can use it. within our own bodies?
Yeah. Well, we first need to understand what stress is, what trauma is, and then I think it becomes a bit more clear why it would be so important to connect to the body. So when you go through day-to-day life, you are using a certain amount of energy to do what you're doing. So when you're sitting, it's not a lot of energy. Okay, when you're listening to somebody, yeah, it's okay. Your nervous system is like in a chill out mode. You're not very active. But now, when you encounter a challenge, you have to have that difficult talk with the client and it emotionally stresses you a little bit. You activate. You feel that in your physical body if you choose to pay attention. You might notice, okay, your cheeks are getting red, your heart is beating a bit faster, and maybe your breath is changing. And you put more energy into your system. Now, when you're just talking to your colleague about a difficult topic, it's one thing. But if you are having a lot of stress, you have a tight schedule, you have a lot of deadlines, you have a lot of colleagues wanting a lot from you, so the demand rises, so you put in more activation, not consciously. Your body does that for you, just like your body, when you run up a flight of stairs, your body's activating, your heart's beating, you're breathing faster. And when you arrive on the top, body is regulating down, heart beats slower, breath regulates again. So this is normal, this is physiological. Your body does it for you. Now, in that situation with a colleague, many of us miss that point when we can go off the gas pedal again. So we're stressing about that talk to the client or to the colleague, and then afterwards we're stressing with something else, and then we do a couple of emails, and then we go on working. So we continuously stressing ourselves without really arriving on the top of the staircase. So our body is constantly on the gas pedal, constantly pushing more energy in, constantly breathing faster, heart beating faster, and all of this. And what happens here is this creates stress. Stress is when our normal activation, so the gas pedal, all of a sudden is not countered, balanced out with coming off the gas pedal, but when we are kind of like continuously staying on. Now, sometimes it is very healthy to go into good stress, like when you're training, when you're exercising. But then you have to also allow a resting phase afterwards where your body recovers. Now, our body does that automatically. But when it's too much, when we are stressing too much, or when we've been traumatized, then we are stuck in an activation that does not allow us to calm down again. So we are constantly staying on high arousal. And this is something that causes our body illnesses and diseases because it has to switch. Now, when we have too much stress or too much trauma, our body goes into an emergency setting where it takes our front lobes, our thinking capacity out. So when you stress enough, like for an exam or very important talk, it could be that you stress so much, you activate so much that you can't think clearly anymore because your body is so much in survival and stress that it says, oh, thinking is too much, let's shut this off. And the fun bit is that we still believe we are online and we still believe we can decide, but our choices are very, very narrow. So it's only black and white, it's only good and bad, it's only this or nothing, my way or the highway. So listening to the body and knowing, we are hitting the stress corner now is very beneficial because then we can consciously take a break and say, okay, we've done that talk now. Let's have a 5-minute breath. Let's have one big sigh. Let's have a short walk around the block, something to get our body out of this activation. And ta-da, when you're taking the activation out, when you take your foot off the gas pedal, then all of a sudden your frontal lobes come online again. You can think again. Because your body doesn't have to save the energy anymore. It's not in survival mode, but it says, okay, fine, we did that, tick, and then you get the reward in the physical body. Now, your thinking mind obviously all the time thinks, oh, I'm in command, I can decide. But actually, your processing capacity in thinking is reduced when you have a high level of stress. I mean, almost everybody knows that when you are kind of like getting some news from a friend, or you are in a situation where there is a lot of stake and you are very stressed, and all of a sudden, you forgot what you wanted to say, or you're kind of like, what am I going to respond now? So it's like, ooh, switch off. Have you ever experienced this yourself?
Yes, yes, of course.
I think
Yes.
everybody knows this. Yeah.
Yes, it's important. And another question you said, when we listen to our body, that leads me to one of the questions that one lady asked me. I will quote her. What if I can't tune into the feeling of safety because I've never experienced it? How can I get to the feeling of safety or other emotions? Is there a way? I feel depressed and disconnected from myself and from my body, and I can't simply tune into it or into my body at all. I'm also like taking strong medication. So, is your therapy suitable for people who are on medication and their ability to feel is suppressed? You know, in a way that many people don't even realize that there is the body talking to them at all. So how to let know the people who are maybe struggling with actually knowing that there is any kind of trauma, or how to connect with the body, you know, like why is it important not to only read about it, as we said before, but how to actually really feel it and be able to
Yeah.
feel it.
This example that the lady was giving to us is a very good one. I don't recall a moment of safety in my life. Unfortunately, this is what a lot of trauma survivors might share. I don't know safety. I don't know what safety feels like. Because, yeah, you're in your living room now. You are, technically speaking, you're safe. Okay. There's no immediate threat in this moment here now, but you don't feel it. Okay. You're agitated, stressed, nervous, anxious, whatever, although there is no immediate threat here. Because your nervous system is kind of like always in the survival mode and never really resting, recovering, saying, chill out now. Now, what we do in these circumstances is we really look for the safe place inside first. Everybody has one, otherwise you wouldn't be alive anymore. But we have kind of forgotten about it because we cannot recall that feeling. Now, for that lady and all the other trauma survivors who have no recollection of real safety, sometimes we have to be patient and, in fact, use the support of a therapy or of a healing seminar or something like that, because we need to recall the feeling of safety viscerally in the body. Like my organs need to know, okay, it's fine now. And sometimes we can recall it quicker by remembering a situation like a teacher supporting you, or you remember if your grandma was somebody for you who was a safe haven, you remember the smell of her house, you remember what it felt like to give her a hug or to come into her living space, and you recall the smells and the hug. And this could be like an assistant to helping us remember what it felt like to be supported by somebody. It could also be that you remember the feeling of a pet, okay? The fur of your favorite dog or cat or horse or something. Not everybody can remember a living being as a human, but many people can remember at least an animal that they felt safe and connected with. And then our task would be to really enter into that feeling with the physical body. So what does that feel like when you recall the fur of your dog when you were 8 or something? The dog is not alive anymore, the dog is not here anymore, but you can recall the feeling. And then for a short moment, your body remembers the feeling and the hugging of the dog and the smell of the dog. And there is a moment of feeling safe. Now we need to expand this. And there are many techniques that we are using to help expand this feeling of safety in the body. But it's not just a mental construct. It's not just something where I say, oh, there is no threat now, it's cool. But there is really the connection to the experience of safety here now. And of course, there are a lot of exercises we do to discern physically something that feels not so good and something that feels good. And then we spread and expand on the good thing so that we get more capacity. Our window of tolerance is opening wider for the moments of discomfort, of disconnection, of something else coming up. This is something we need to train, and depending on how badly we were wounded, how badly our nervous system was dysregulated, we might need to have a bit more patience, and we might need professional support. Now to the second part of the question of the lady, the medication. For some people, medication is important in the beginning, okay? And we definitely don't say stop medication at all, but we say start with working on yourself, start with working on the nervous system, on emotional regulation, do the work, and then together with your doctor, you can see what is the plan for the future. But for now, you can definitely do the work even when you are on medication, because medication should help you usually to have a better, how can I say, capacity of tolerating your emotions. And if the tolerance is very small, so the tolerance window is very narrow, and you dysregulate immediately when you get emotional, medication might be of help in the beginning. Hopefully, it will not be forever, and we don't know this. Our medical profession needs to assist here, and we have to work together. But you can definitely do the seminars even when you are on medication, because you will learn and train what emotions are, how to connect to the body, how to regulate yourself, and you can work together with your professional helpers and then find what works for you best.
Yes, thank you for the answer. That leads me to another question of another lady. You said when you do the work on yourself, I know there are many exercises, but there was this one friend of mine who doesn't know you yet, and she asked, like I will quote her, how can I effectively release stress and trauma from my body? How do I start? Perhaps at home, gently. I don't have any experience with your seminars or body work. If you have any suggestions at the beginning for people who maybe are new to this and they would like to start slowly, but they don't have any knowledge yet.
Yeah. There are a couple of therapists already trained in this method in Prague, in Bratislava, in Estonia. And you can start one-on-one with a private therapist, of course. But there's also the option, if you want to start really slow from the comfort of your home, we have a body-mind online course. That is, you can find this on my website, on the Podia profile. And what that gives you is a bit of theory, a bit of background, and it gives you a lot of practical exercises. There are meditations and yoga and breathing and shaking and grounding exercises. There's all sorts of things that help to get this connection from the mind and the body. Because it's really, for some people, where do I actually look? I mean, connect to the body, wonderful, but how? And that would probably answer the question, because step by step, you learn to tune into a different frequency. The mind is quite fast, so thinking for a lot of people is everything. And the body will not be paid attention to too much unless it hurts. Now, of course, we can also connect to the body in a beautiful and loving way when we start to practice, for example, in the shower, okay? When you're having a shower, feel the water, okay? And if you're using shampoo or soap or something like that, feel it. You know, what sensations are you having in the body when you're actually giving yourself the treat of looking after for yourself in the shower? And the same with food. Many people just eat. But there's the absolute possibility that you pause a little bit and you smell the food first. And when you put it in the mouth, pay attention, okay? What is the texture like? The taste, okay? So you can really follow the food going in, and it has very, very different effects. I mean, how many of us, be honest, I mean, how many of us have breakfast and scrolling here and talking to the family and 15 things at the same time? But if we slow it all down and pay attention to what sensations am I having right now, it can be a ball game changer. Because right now, you have so many sensations in the body that you're not paying attention to. Like you're sitting. You're not choosing to feel your seat, but you can. You can choose, oh, I feel the sofa or the chair. You can choose that. Okay. You got beautiful hair. You could choose to feel how the hair is tickling your skin. You usually don't, but you can if you want to. And then the same with the breath, because the breath is our quickest tool for nervous system regulation because it's connected via the vagus nerve. Now, usually we don't pay attention to breathing, but you can. Like, aha, how am I breathing? Okay. How about having a big sigh? Well, do it now. Like, have a big sigh. What does that feel like?
Release.
Yeah, it releases instantly. So having a good, delicious sigh can be a quick fix in a situation where you're frizzled in your mind and going about your day. Pause, breathe and sigh, and this fraction of a second gives you another connection again. So we train all this at the seminars, but of course you can do it from your home, from the comfort of your sofa, and just start slow in your own pace. And for some people, slower is faster. So some people just have to go really slow. Discover first the breath, discover the sensations in the body, and then slowly pacing their way towards regulation. Because I have to mention this one thing. I mean, we have these courses about nervous system regulation and the body-mind course because when you are used to high stress levels or trauma, your nervous system is in a continuous state of dysregulation. And it kind of gets used to it. So it's almost as if your normal settings are not in the middle and balanced, but your normal setting is on high. Now that produces a lot of tension in the body, and it closes the body and it makes the body very rigid. Now, when we start with these practices and the body starts to soften and we soften our grip and we open out a little bit, we get into relaxation eventually. Not necessarily immediately, because there's a lot of tension that we notice. Oh my God, my body is so tense. But when you start to soften and open up, what often also happens is that the emotions start to come up because they have been suppressed for a long time. Now, when the nervous system relaxes and the body relaxes, the emotions say, me, finally, and they push up. And this is why the work is actually called E minus motion, energy in motion, or emotions are simply energy in motion, because we want to embrace them. We want to say yes to the emotions that are coming up. And then the task starts of making friends with the emotions, regulating our emotionality, using the body to embrace them, to process them, and eventually to let them go. And people alone at home, sometimes when they are confronted with the emotions starting to come up because they're feeling more relaxed and more regulated, they say, oh my God, it's too much. And they kind of back off again. This is fine. And like toe dipping in and going back, and a little 2 or 3 more toes and back, and then half a foot and back. It's beautiful. It's totally normal. And it is actually what we're practicing. So take as much as you can and then back to safety.
Actually, there was one question regarding emotions, and I wasn't sure if to add it, but now I can ask you one. How can we become more aware of and physically sense our emotions when bodily sensations are subtle or tend to disappear quickly? Do different emotions have specific physical sensations that people can learn to recognize?
I would say yes. And of course, it's a very personal, natural, individual thing. So not everybody experiences anger in the same place, but there's a likelihood that you can feel when you're starting to get frustrated, upset, angry, uptight, or something like that. It's possible that you start to feel your hands more. It's possible that you notice activation in the arms and the shoulders and the chest because we want to brace against something. Yeah. Very often you can also feel it in the jaw. And sadness has a tendency to bring us in and low. So often we get like a lump in the throat. It feels like, whoa, there's tears coming, and we're kind of like holding them. So we feel like, oof, something in my throat. And it's kind of like drawing us in. It can feel as if in the chest you're going back. You want to protect your heart. It's pulling out. Now, these subtle signals that are coming from the body are really worth observing. And have such subtle signals because we've ignored them for so long that the body's kind of like, why bother? And we can learn to pay attention again. And they don't have to be massive. You don't have to be sick first or break a leg before you listen to your body saying stop. You can start to listen to the subtle signals earlier. But of course, we have to make sure that it feels safe to do so. So if you experience the body as the enemy, because the body holds so many emotions and so much tension and so much trauma, it's probably not going to be your favorite pastime to feel your body and feel your emotions. And this is when we need help, possibly, that we get somebody to assist us to find that safe place in ourselves and step by step connect to the body again. For some people, especially if they've experienced abuse of some kind, physical, emotional, sexual, it could be that the enemy is not outside anymore, but it feels like the enemy is inside. So when I allow my emotions to come up, I feel overwhelmed and helpless. And this is when we need to take it slow, even slower, and gently build the connection and start to have a safe place first before we encounter these things.
Yes, interesting. Another question that I'm interested in, I just feel like going deeper into this body work and connecting it, shifting from the mind to the
Good.
body. It's amazing approach. Reminded me of, I don't know if anyone knows that you lived in Africa for a few years. And I would like to ask you, what inspired you from the Africans? Like, what did you learn? How we can learn from them? Because I know that they experience severe traumas, like really, really big ones. So, what inspired you the most while you lived there? I know maybe you've been observing and living with them. Yes, this one, I just feel really interested in knowing how their systems work. How do they work with emotions and what we can learn from them? Because we live in a society where we are thinking a lot. We are working, we're like robots. They are more connected to the bodies and they are
Yeah.
yeah, different things.
Yeah.
So
Well, I would say it was a lot of things that inspired me. But what I was really, how can I say, studying in our beautiful neighbors was the one thing is community, okay? And the other thing is they have a very physical approach, less words, very physical to deal with things. So instinctively, from the instinctual centers of the gut, for example, and sometimes the chest, they really sense into what's happening. And without a lot of words, they go into some interchange. And because of that communal thing, the setup is very different to our societies. Okay, we have like an individual centering, individual psychology. It's all about me, and my world. And there it is about us. So the Ubuntu is really us together. So a human is human through human connections. And healing happens in community. So I think we have forgotten a lot about this in the West because we are trying to do it all by ourselves, all on our own, and it's all about me and I'm taking everything personally. Of course we do. Fine, granted. Yeah. And sometimes we need another human being to co-regulate with, somebody who's just sitting next to us. And they talk less, they dance more, they drum, they sing, they move. And I was watching them with the drums and the movement, the rhythmicality of it, and the I mean, you know how that feels when you hear good drums and you allow your body to move. This is healing in itself, okay? Because our body was made for rhythms. Our body is made to be in rhythmic arousal and repair and, move with people and then go into solitude. And this is what that can teach us. Yes, you are an individual, but you are also in a community. You can't avoid. You're living somewhere and there are people, okay? So our body is made to heal with that. And if we trust our communities, when we allow ourselves to go with somebody that we can open with, healing happens because our nervous system by nature switches into social interaction. So the social connection mode of our brain is where the healing can happen. So by recreating artificially a community, a tribe at the seminars, the individual coming through the door is entering into this ancient tribal space of you are okay, you are connected, you are allowed to be who you are here, right as you are. And I'm not well, I'm using words because I'm a therapist and people need to talk about what they experienced. But what is the majority, the bigger part, the bigger percentage of healing, I believe, that's happening in my private practice or other seminars is that there is somebody receiving you, somebody who feels with you. They don't jump into the well, but they stay there and lend their helping hand. And I think we have, as a Western society, forgotten how to be with people in presence, in openness, connected, emotionally connected. Very often we try to solve their problems and we give them advice and we tell them what to do or what not to do. But who takes the time to really sit with somebody? Shut up, be quiet, and just offer space, Maybe ask, is there anything I can do for you? Or do you want to talk about it? Fine, great. But let people be who they are and be with them. And because my Zulu was crap, I was really trying to learn it, but I didn't get very far. My old Zulu teacher, she might sing a long and sad song about that, but I couldn't use words. It was not possible. But presence is always possible. The presence that you consciously enter in, the space that you're holding, is like a radio, like a transmitter. Your nervous system, when it's regulated, when it's holding space, accepting, opening, connecting, will help another being to connect to themselves simply by biology. You don't have to do anything. And this is what I learned from them, how to simply be. And I'm forever grateful because it is very different than the technical, verbal, doing something approach that we often use.
So do you think thanks to this approach, they're healing their traumas easier, or how to say, like it's more important their approach, not so much thoughts, but rather the body and then someone, because they were through a lot of traumas, like a big ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of trauma, obviously. I mean, not only the aftermath of apartheid, but still the criminality happening and the illnesses and the diseases happening. But they were not using talking style therapy. They were using community. They were using healing in the group. They were using the drums and the music and the singing and the connecting. And I don't know, you're very young, but after apartheid, there was a way of healing which was the reconciliation. They were trying to offer to the victims that they could talk to the perpetrators and tell them about what they suffered from. And very often when somebody was sharing, of course, they get emotional, they start crying. But then the community would start to sing and they would sway, because they can't just stand still when they're singing. They are not doing that. Yeah. So they're moving and they were singing, not to stop the victim, but to support the victim, that they can feel what they are feeling and release and process their emotions while they are in community, held in that, yes, we get you. Yes, we are with you. You're not alone. And the victim was crying and then moving and singing themselves until they are done, and then they can continue. And there was a bishop, Bishop Tutu, who was leading some of these processes. And it was amazing to watch. I mean, maybe you can still find it on YouTube, but it was amazing to watch how community and being able to speak your pain and share your emotions can heal much more than having a trial and talking about facts and sending the perpetrator to jail. I mean, what does the victim have out of this? But by sharing their pain and having the perpetrator listen and having the community helping them to process it, was giving healing. And I found that beyond inspiring, really. I mean, that for me was a total change, because I was studying clinical psychology and the whole verbal thing and everything, of course, to know, and but then I got it. We are not healing top down. Well, some top down healing needs to happen, okay? We need to talk about things, we need to process wrong beliefs, wrong thinking, yes. But when you want to start from the brain, from the top down, and you want to reach your emotions and then the body, very difficult when it comes to trauma, because in trauma, your brain switches off. It's not there, it's not online. So the memories, the feelings, the emotions, the sensations are all scattered in the body, and the brain is helpless. But when we turn it all around and we come from the body, from the movement, from the sounding, breathing, singing, humming, moving, then we can reach the emotions, embrace them. And then when they are finished, when the body has done what it needs to do and the emotions have left, then all of a sudden understanding happens by itself. And then out of the atrocities, out of the unbelievable that happened, it all of a sudden gets processed and put into a box and filed into a system in a way that leaves us empowered to continue living, instead of continuously living in survival mode. So we are not forever traumatized in survival, but we can start to live again. Because that's the difference between some stress and trauma. Trauma means living got to a halt. Trauma means everything is scattered in the body. Nervous system is stuck. It feels like you're right in there still. It's happening here in the living room still. Stress is something that happens and that goes away again. But when you keep it stuck in trauma, you need to do something about it so that you can actually start to live again.
Hmm. Oh. Thank you. Another question, that's for me. What led you into this healing journey? What was the breaking point in your life when we are talking about trauma and stress? We know that all of us, we go through trauma, more or less. We all experience stress in our lives. So I would like to ask you, what helped you? How did you deal with your traumas? Or where was this breaking point when you said, okay, enough, or I want to go into it? Because I know many people also that I meet, they know there is something down there, but they are like, no, I don't want to do it. I'd rather just not face it. But it's still there. It doesn't disappear at all. It's just there. So we're trying to find ways, each of us, the best we can. So I just would like to know you to tell us what maybe helped you, or how did you get to this journey?
Yeah, I mean, where to start? I was a bit of a troubled young woman, I would say. I was really, I mean, I didn't have it easy with myself. I wasn't really able to embrace my emotionality. I had a lot of problems, if you so wish. And I was using coping strategies that were probably not really the best for me. And I already had 3 small children, and I knew I need to do something about my mental and emotional health, because I'm doing everything I can for my children. I have a loving husband and everything, but I can't feel fulfilled and whole and connected to myself. And yes, I feel happy at times, but what I was missing was this deep-seated, rooted fulfillment where I said, wow, great, I love life. And when we moved to Africa, I had a lot of revelations. I had a lot of beautiful experiences that helped me adjust my coping strategies to a healthier version. You're doing sports and good nutrition and, looking at myself. And I even decided to study psychology to understand what went wrong in my life. And I found out what went wrong in my life, but that left me a little helpless. Okay, now I know, but what to do? Because I had developmental trauma, which means in my childhood, my attachment relationships were not supporting me in a way to develop healthily in my emotionality with myself and my self-worth and all of that. And I'm not parent bashing at all. I love my parents. They're very old and still alive. And World War II survivors, survival was more of a priority than fiddling about with emotions. But hey, when I studied psychology, I got it. Okay, I can understand a lot of things, but to heal, I need something else. And I was even working at a welfare organization that had a free of charge hotline that you can call with your problems. And yes, we got all the tools, we got millions of courses, and we got really, they threw the bricks on us, every therapy that's possible. We got, we learned it. And I still felt like, wow, that doesn't change a lot. Okay. I want to support myself and other people to have that fundamental change of saying yes to life and being able to embrace it all. And only when I noticed that the body needs to be in it and I need to embrace my emotions, it changed. So before I was anxious, I was doubtful, I was riddled with fear, I had a low self-esteem and God knows what. And I did a lot of stupid things to kind of get around the discomfort of all of this. But when I saw you cannot run away from your own feelings, they will always be there, they will always happen. Now, face them, embrace them, let them come to you and open with them, open through them. This is where your own self resides underneath all these layers of the crap that you have kind of like built like an onion around you. And it's not happening out there, up there. It's happening down here. And this is when all the tools came towards me. So all of a sudden, of all the courses that we did, there were more courses coming about emotions, emotional regulation, and then the somatic approaches, like the trauma releasing through the body, and all these beautiful teachers out there that are helping us to look at the body and how to process trauma from a different approach, body up instead of top down. And I did not know that I needed to do all the courses and even study psychology for myself first. I thought I was doing that for my clients, obviously, but I was the one who needed it. And for me, the penny dropped when I realized how to be with my emotions. This is why my work is called emotion. And I still recall one day I had an episode of depression coming to visit me again, and I was standing at the window looking out. And I got that moment when it was rising. And I thought, I've got a choice here. Do I go into this now? Do I go into all the thoughts and the drama and the story and that TV of me and my life and my drama? Or do I pause? And I choose to pause. And I said, thank you, not now. And I took a deep breath and I let that go and I went moving. I just went outside and took one step and the next one, and I was moving. And eventually I was running. and I was helping my body to process, to activate, to use the energy instead of dropping into the hole like I've done a million times before. I pulled myself out of that hole and I said, no. To myself, I set a boundary. I said, no, we will move now. We will breathe now. We will add rhythm and we will change the perspective. Where my attention goes, my energy follows, my behavior follows. And I literally rocked it around. And this is also what I'm trying to teach people with depression or mood disorders and emotional difficulties is you are a choice. Sometimes when you're already deep in it, it might take a while. Okay. But when these subtle, because somebody said subtle physical things, when the subtle physical signals are arising, I have a choice. Where do I go? Here, thinking about what have I done wrong? What does that mean? Who's at fault? Who's to blame? Me? Everybody else? I mean, everybody chooses different. But hey, does that mean anything? Or I let that personal thing go and I say, okay, there's some ouch happening. Let me get curious. What are the sensations with that ouch? Okay, where do I feel that? Not what does it mean, but where do I feel that? Is it in the heart? Is it in the belly? Is it in the throat? Where actually? And then be curious, okay, what are the sensations? Is it stinging? Is it like a lump? Is it flowing? Is it hot, cold, tight, tense, rigid? What? Okay. And when you put the attention on this, it changes fundamentally what your experience is. We could actually, because we have, what do we have, 5, 10 more minutes? We could actually do an experiment, but let's just check first. Do we have more questions?
Yes, there is one more that I wanted to ask, which is leading me from your sharing. You said when we are very down deep, sometimes we don't know the way out. There was one person asking this. I'm feeling stuck in a loop, unsure of how to move forward. I enjoy what I'm doing, but it doesn't provide enough to make a living. That creates stress and pressure to find something else, but the alternatives don't pay well either. Frustration builds, and with it, a deep sense of helplessness. Nothing makes sense anymore. I feel like a burden to those around me, and it naturally reopens a deep trauma, the pain of not being able to take care of myself.
Yeah. This is a beautiful description of how we dysregulate into hopelessness and helplessness. At the seminars, I use a wheel to explain the nervous system. Because we have like different gears, we've got the fast and the slow. And what the description in the question is, yes, I'm kind of okay, I'm balanced, I'm feeling good. And then I feel a bit of lack. So that lack pulls me slightly towards fear. It's not enough, okay? So I'm getting pulled towards fear and lack. Now, when I'm already getting pulled into fear and lack, my body activates. Oh, I have to do something about it, okay? So, oh, I have to change this because, and then I realize, oh, I only have two choices, this one and that one, and they're both fucked up. Now, this is very, very typical when we've kind of like lost our nervous system balance and gone below the line of equilibrium. Okay, let's say above the line, we can be very active and we can also be very calm, but we are connected to ourselves and to our resources. And when we kind of like boom, boom, drop below the line, this is where we feel helpless, hopeless, no resources, no way out. And because our frontal lobes get disabled, we also do not see the options anymore. Our focus gets so narrow that we say, I can either do this or I can do that, but both ways I'm fucked. We are not creative anymore. We are not resourceful anymore because the creativity, the flow resides above the line in that healthy, balanced equilibrium where I can be fast and I can be slow and I can have periods where I'm very abundant and then I have times where it's kind of like, wow, it's not going so well. But in that question, it was beautifully described how I leave my equilibrium and I go into lack, and then I go into only two possibilities, and then I go even lower and end up in hopelessness. And the way to go is not to look for more options. They will come automatically. You will see them. They will arrive and they will guide you into creativity, into the next step, and this door opening and that opportunity coming when you regulate your body out of this. Now, in that specific case of, okay, I'm doing something, but it's frustrating, maybe frustration needs to be embraced. Maybe it needs to be embraced that I'm grieving the loss of something, that I'm not finished with a certain topic. So that person who's asking this question, I would actually advise, have a look at the emotions in there, okay? And embrace them and ask them whether they have a message for you. And then help your body to move that through. Stomp, embrace a pillow, move, shake, drum, sing, hum, do something else, and get yourself out of the hopelessness into breathing, and then more activity. So get a bit of energy running, okay? Move more, dance more, and see what happens. Sometimes creativity comes back. And sometimes all of a sudden a friend calls you and says, look, I've got this opportunity. How do you feel about that? Because we set ourselves into looking somewhere else. When I'm looking out of hopelessness, I will most likely only see hopeless things, no chances. I will feel helpless. I will see only black and white, and I cannot have it, and it's far away and all alone. But when we regulate out of this and we feel connected to ourselves again, and also connected or have the possibility of connection to other people, the world looks very different. And this is something we need to we need to foster in ourselves, that yes, you embrace the pain and the grief and the anger and everything, but you don't make a story or an identity out of it. But you allow it to sit with you, and then you turn your attention to something else. You turn your attention to the positive, to the chances, to energy in movement, to nature outside, embracing nature outside.
Mhm. Thank you.
I think there was a question in the chat. Did you see that?
Yes, two new messages. Can you explain what the difference is when someone approaches trauma before doing this work, like seminar, then after doing this work? A person will always encounter different situations. So what is going on that the body handles it differently once they do this journey work?
Well, once your nervous system has learned that it actually has a chance of balancing, that it actually has a chance of processing, letting go, opening out, and approaching emotions, what happens is we are not getting scared of our own emotionality anymore. So when we feel angry, we can kind of stop and say, oh, anger's visiting. Interesting. So what do you have to say to myself? Okay. And I'm listening to myself. And maybe this is a fresh anger saying I need to set a boundary with this person. They stepped the line, and I need to say, thank you very much, and I'm not available for this, or sorry, this is mine, and I'm not okay with how we're handling this here, or whatever that boundary is. Or I can say, no, that's old anger, actually. This is my anger at my brother who always, whatever. And I'm projecting this anger on this person because he looks like my brother. And then I can say, okay, this is my anger, but it has no place here now. My anger is just hopping out of my emotional backpack because it looks for an opportunity to just jump out. And I can say, not now, to my anger. And then I deal with the situation politely and however that situation needs to be dealt with. And then I go back home or whatever to a private space. And then I say, okay, old anger with my brother, come here. So what is there here? What do I still need to feel? What do I need to process in myself to get to a conclusion with this, to finish this old business? And this is very different finishing old business, becoming aware of it and finishing it is very different because you're not spilling it into the present moment now. Because we all do. I mean, that's very human that we are just overreacting when we get triggered. So if somebody reminds you of something, or an innocent comment of your colleague saying, oh, you look a bit shit today, in a friendly way, just wanting to say, I noticed that you don't look good, is something up. But internally, you don't hear this love and concern and attention, but you hear like, they're criticizing me and I'm ugly, reminding you of your mother and sister who criticize you all the time. So that's the difference. Can you be with what really is here, or are you kind of on autopilot triggered from the past? So that's the difference. And this is why when we at the seminars find our safe place, and when we process our emotions, and when we get our nervous system balanced and the window of tolerance more open, and we can actually accept more discomfort, because emotions are not comfortable. They are meant to be uncomfortable. They are meant to move you to do something and, not to do something. So they are not meant to be all pleasant. Some of them, but not all of them. So when we start to embrace this discomfort and get at home with ourselves again, then life is much easier because there's more of us available. I hope that answers the question. Cool. We're actually almost at the end, aren't we? So was there any last question, or is that it?
There was this question about the blue and the green zone. You know which one?
Okay. How do we balance there, or what? How do we notice the subtle movements, or what was it exactly?
I can read it for you. I can quote the
Yeah.
person. So when I can't tell if I'm in activation or freezing because my nervous system swings between both poles all day and I have anxious thoughts and depressive states, how can I get back into the green zone? I feel like I might calm down a little when I breathe soothingly with my eyes closed for half an hour, but within the next 15 minutes after I return to some activity, I'm tense again. I feel like I could calm myself down this way maybe 10 times a day. How should I deal with this?
Well, calm yourself down 15 times a day. Sorry, but this is really the truth. When we are, I mean, it is really not a nice experience to be between depression and anxiety all the time and wafting down there in the compartment. But what needs to happen here is that, probably with the help of some co-regulating partner, it doesn't have to be a therapist, but it needs to be somebody who can be regulated themselves. That our nervous system learns again to come out of these states, instead of going between depression, anxiety, back and forth, blocking, freezing, hyperactivating, and then blocking again, learning how to start to open out. And this needs to happen in the body. So breathing, regulating, calming down 10 times a day. 10 times is not very often, it's just once an hour. A normal person regulates much more often, but they don't notice, okay? It is very normal that we are swinging like this the whole day. It's just to allow our window of tolerance to open means my nervous system can take more activation without anxiety, but just activation. Like I can run, I can go jogging, okay? I can be, hey, in a heated argument, I can hit a pillow or something, and I'm not losing my frontal lobes. I'm not going into blind aggression, but I'm sweating, I'm hot. And at the same time, also on the other side. So the window has two sides. So activation, and deactivation, slowing down, calming, opening, going deep, connecting. This also needs to happen. So meditation is a good thing, walking slowly, mindfulness exercises, breathing help us to open that side. And then also balance it with the active. Go play soccer and something like that. So with these two sides, we are actually helping our body to be more tolerant with the discomfort of the heated one and the blue one. And then we don't have to, boom, collapse into the survival mechanisms anymore, but we can stay more regulated. And yes, it needs practice. And yes, 10 times a day is cool. And it can be more often. when the nervous system is very dysregulated because it's in trouble, because it is still processing trauma, then this might be the reality that we have to do it a lot.
Yes, thank you. That was it. That was all the questions that we had.
Beautiful. Okay. So do we call it a day here, or we want to have one little exercise before?
We can do the experiment that you wanted to start
Yeah.
with.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's a very simple exercise where we can notice something in the body. It just needs you to be in a safe position. So if you are driving a car or doing something out in traffic, please do not close your eyes. People who have the possibility to do that, they can close their eyes and just allow their body to relax for a moment and taking a deep breath, sighing it out. And then just with curiosity, just simply wanting to know, is there any area in my body at the moment, right here, right now, that feels a bit of discomfort, that feels a bit tight, or is maybe calling for my attention? Can be anything. Is there an area? And if you have one, be curious. Simply try with your own curiosity and attention. Just try to find, okay, what is that feeling like? Is this vibrating or throbbing? Is it tight, tingling? Is it cold, hot, stabbing, pulsating? What is the sensation in this body part? Just curiously noticing what it's like. And notice what happens when your attention is resting on these sensations. When you're just completely interested and curious about these sensations, what happens? And then let go of this area and sigh again. Big breath. Move the jaw, move your head, move your shoulders maybe. And then with the same curiosity, with the same, oh, I would really love to know, tune into the body again and find, okay, is there any area in your body that feels good now? That right here, right now is okay. And it could be just one little thing, could be your nose or whatever. So is there an area, and even if it's just one cell, is there an area in your body that feels okay, feels quite good, okay? And notice what the sensations are in this area of the body. This area in the body that feels okay, quite good, maybe healthy or whatever. And when you rest your attention on this area, try to be curious. Okay, what is that like? Is it flowing, streaming, tingling? Is it wide? Is it narrow? What is the temperature? What is the feeling? What is the sensation? And really notice, okay, this good area, what does that feel like? And then use your breath to allow this area to really open up. Sighing, breathing into this area. Let this area really open out. Let this expand and feel, okay, what does that feel like? And notice what happens in your whole body when this area spreads, when this good feeling is allowed to expand, is allowed to just ride on your wave of breath and go through the whole body. Just notice. And when you notice this, you can gently sigh again. Start to move your body, stretch and open your eyes again. Welcome back, my love. I was watching you a little bit. I like to see how your chest was lifting when you felt so good. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I felt some parts of my body being tense. I didn't even realize before that I have some tense places, of course.
Mhm.
But the good feeling was good.
Yeah,
It was much easier. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What happened when you had your attention on that tense part? Did anything change? Did anything happen?
Yeah, it was getting more intense. But when
Mhm.
I was using my breath, it was like being released and being relaxed more.
Yeah.
But I think after we finish, I will go more into it.
Very good. Yeah, wonderful. Do that. Well, what happens for a lot of people when they put their attention on that area, these sensations change. So for a lot of people, simply noticing it already changes them. And then also what happens for a lot of people, of course, not all of them, but what happens for a lot of people when you allow the good to spread, it actually embraces whatever was not feeling so great before. And it's like solving it, dissolving it, melting it. So this is a very tiny little exercise that one can easily do at night in bed or whatever during the day. Just allowing attention to go somewhere and then attention to go on something positive. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it.
And if you can maybe mention at the end the following seminars, the next one in Israel, just so
Oh,
people.
yes. Yeah, I'm very proud. I'm actually going to Israel very soon, but I just have to open my calendar because otherwise I'm talking nonsense. So I'm going to Israel end of the month, and I will be available to teach about trauma and stress and trauma. And opala, no, come on, calendar open. Yeah, and the seminar is taking place from the 23rd to the 25th of February. And actually, we're meeting in the desert, so in a very safe and beautiful retreat area where we can really go deep into releasing the stress and allowing our traumas to heal a little bit. And my heart really goes out to Israel. I've been there a lot and supporting the communities even before the war started. And just because of the situation, it wasn't possible to go back really. But now finally, I take my chance to go back and, yeah, allow the space to be there for healing and for allowing the traumas to heal and for allowing the stress to come down. Because when you're living in a war zone, and not only Israel, but all the war zones that we have, stress is enormous. So the body is suffering not only because of the war, but also because we are in a constant state of survival. So this is my little contribution to that. And afterwards, I will actually be in Prague with an advanced seminar in March 21st to 23rd, which is called Connect Deeper. But I think we can have another thoughtful talk about that, right?
Just wanted to say that we already have a date,
Yeah.
4th of March, in
4th
two and
of
a
March. Yes.
half. It's
Because
Tuesday,
this
so
Connect
everyone.
Deeper is really dear to me because it's about healing our families and relationships. It's by connecting to ourselves deeper, more intensely, we are actually more available for the relationships too. And that doesn't mean only partners. It means really my family of origin, my family, if I have one. It means the people around me. So by connecting deeper, first to myself and then to the other people, we can all heal together. So this is very dear to me. Yes,
Yeah,
more
it's
about that in March.
yes. If you want to send us questions already, you can do it.
Yes, absolutely. Questions about connecting deeper, about families and relationships, shoot them out. And thank you very much for listening and see you next time.
Yes, thank you.